let's do this. Yes, precious. I feel like somebody's just handed me a red suitcase full of state secrets. And welcome back to a new video. I cannot believe that not only is it that time again, new TBR and book commitments for another month, but it is also the end of my time in Becca's library. I'm filming this one literally at the last minute on the 31st of the month. Talk about cutting it fine! Because lovely spouse Harry and I have been having such a fun holiday, but such a full holiday. We have not relaxed a single day that we've been here. We've just been doing the whole time. When my body decided to shut me down for a few days, but that's fairly normal. So this feels kind of like an OG Leanne TBR. Right off the cuff, right at the last minute, high stakes. But because I am still in Becca's library, I have access to some illicit goods. Namely, every Bookopoly board that has ever lived. And so I thought, what better idea than to make Bookopoly pick me my TBR for this month. It's been a really long time since my old TBR game, my year of readathons. In case you're new here, I came up with a new TBR game literally every single month to pick my TBRs. And although I love the fact that my reading life is slightly less chaotic now, and we obviously have my bingo board from hell where I'm working on all of the goals that I have and all of the things that I found difficult, I still occasionally really miss the chaos of doing something like this. Now obviously I am very far removed from my own library, and while I have a fairly good memory for the things that are on my shelves, I'm not going to be able to remember absolutely everything. Especially because, as I've discovered over the last 6 months or so, because my horror, gothic and dark academia books live in my living room, I often forget that they exist and I often forget to add them into TBRs. So I'm going to have to do something about that when I go home, although I don't entirely know what. So what I'm going to do is pick the board that I want my TBR to come from, and then when I get home tomorrow I'm going to marry up those rolls with books from my shelves. This will kind of mean that it's going to be like a Bookopoly dealer's choice situation. In terms of the prompts on my bingo board from hell, it's just going to be like the cards fall where they may. Some of these might help you tick off prompts, but some of them might not. I really am here for the chaos right now. So let's have a look at what our board options are. Okay, so first up we've got the Bookopoly board, which is Becca's most recent board. It was a special Halloween-y horror inspired board, and of course it really appeals to me, but I almost think this would be too easy. And I did play Bookopoly when it came out, whereas I haven't played from some of Becca's other boards. So I think we're going to set this one aside. Okay, so I'm not sure of the years of all of Becca's Bookopoly board, but this one really appeals to me because it has quite a lot of genre prompts on it. The only things that I think I would struggle with is that we have contemporary romance down here, and we have dystopia and young adult fantasy on here, and none of those are genres that I tend to gravitate towards. But there are other things on here that I'm really excited about, like a whole block of adult fantasy. There's middle grade, and I do have some middle grades on my shelf that I just am not finding reasons to pick up. There's thriller and science fiction over there. So this one's a possibility. And then there was this one. Now there are still two categories that I might struggle with, like romance and contemporary down here. But there are a lot of other spaces on this board that I'm really excited for. We've got spaces for like read along and video projects. There's another category down there that I could do anything for. Again, we have fantasy, science fiction, but we also have another block of fantasy over here. So this board is a very sort of durable board. But so far this one kind of feels like it's calling my name. So if you have never played Bookopoly before, then the rules are simple. These boards are of course based on the traditional Monopoly board. On these boards, however, if you roll a double, you add another book to your TBR. So we will be starting out attempting to have 5 picks, which seems like a slim TBR for me these days, but I have been done dirty by these boards before. And you think you're starting with 5 picks, but I have never ever ended up with only 5 picks. So we'll be starting with 5 and going gently. Now these boards do have chance and community chest, and of course there are usually cards on the board here there for those. Instead of cards, I have just got a list on my phone that I'm going to randomise if we land on either of those, because I didn't feel like taking Becca's library apart to try and make my own set of cards. And of course, just like in Monopoly, we start at go and we work around the board per the roles. Now, the other thing that I do have to tell you about this month's TBR is that I am actually a host for a wonderful readathon. I am going to be co-hosting for Battleathon. For this readathon, we are all assassins competing in different houses for the King's pardon. If you would like to join my team, I am the wonderful House of Stars, which seemed perfect for a witchy astrology geek. Obviously, I'm filming in Becca's library right now, so I don't have all of the details in front of me, so I'm just going to rely on future Leanne to tell you about this stuff in more detail and hopefully put some stuff on the screen that explains it a little bit better than right now. Do not worry, past Leanne, future Leanne has got you. Battleathon is a readathon that was created by the lovely Mel from Mel Lenore Reads. I will pop a link down in the description below with all of the details for the readathon, including the Discord, in case you want to join in. Be the first to be notified about reading sprints, because there will definitely be some, and find out how to count those all-important stars. As past Leanne mentioned, I am co-hosting the House of Stars, which is very pertinent to this readathon because the way that we get points for our house is entirely dependent on how we rate all of the books that we read in August. So 5 stars being the most points, 1 star being kinda really bad. As you guys will probably know, being as we recently updated these numbers in the first episode of my 60% diaries, my star ratings for this year could most accurately be described as variable. So quite honestly, who really knows how this is gonna go? So with that, let's get started. Okay, so here we are all set up. I have procured some dice. Look at the suntan on that vitiligo. Normally Becca moves around the board with one of her little bookmarks, but I can't find one that I know the character for, so instead we have a tiny little ghost from the York Ghost Merchants, because that does seem to be the theme of this trip. I have bought a few while I've been here. Oh no, wait, we've got the board the wrong way around. Let's let's fix that. These amateur mistakes. First roll. Oh, it's already a double. So that was a 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A viewer recommendation. That's good for me. I like that. I can take one out of my Patreon pot. Okay, so I have my Patreon picks pot spreadsheet, and I'm just gonna do a little bit of random scrolling, and I'm gonna shut my eyes and say this one. Ooh, okay. This one was submitted by Kerry, and it is The Lake House by Sarah Beth Durst. I asked all of my patrons to give me a reason why they picked books for me for this pot, and Kerry says this one has excellent OCD representation, and you mentioned recently that you keep forgetting that it exists. Well, that was both a recommendation and a read. So I don't know whether this one actually made it onto a TBR and fell off again, or whether it was like only a contender in a poll or something. Either way, this one is a YA survival horror, which is pretty much the only type of YA horror that I read these days. It's a weird kind of niche genre age range crossover that really works for me for whatever reason. And our main character in this one is being sent away to like a wilderness training camp, mostly because her parents think that she is far too sheltered and that she relies far too much on all of her routines. Her routines in this case being OCD, but I don't think her parents quite understand that this is an actual disorder that she has, and instead just see it as something that they want to fix. So they put her on a bus on her own with like no idea what she's heading into, which is her literal worst nightmare. And she turns up at this camp with 2 other girls, but they all turn up late. And when they get there, they are walking through the dark woods to this camp, and they find all of the lights on, but everybody dead. Bus is gone, it is a ridiculous walk back to any kind of civilization, and they have no idea whether the person who did this is still out there watching them. So this is a perfect pick. Thank you very much, Kerry. And also thank you to the Bookopoly board, because that wasn't too bad despite the fact that it was a double. So rolling a 10 means that we are already up to 6 books for this TBR. How joyful. Let's see what our next roll is. Rookie mistake. Where did that dice go? Oh, another rookie mistake was not shutting Brie out of here while we were playing this board, so if the angle has moved, that's why. Let's see what our next choice is. It's a 5. This is the scary side of the board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, one that I have for review. I know that I definitely have some ARC copies on the bottom of my Holly, so let's rifle through those. Alright, so normally I would take you over to my Holly and I would actually show you me rifling through the books, but this time around, as you can see, there's quite a lot of bags on the floor. There's not actually that much room, and also there are a bunch of books on my Holly that I don't want to spoil you guys for my holiday haul. So instead I went rifling all on my lonesome and I came up with this book. This is Trust by Hernan Diaz, and it's been long listed for the Booker maybe, and so the lovely people at Book Break asked if anybody would like to read any of their titles that had been long listed, and I was like, aha. Weirdly, this one is once again kind of a Patreon pick because that's how it originally came across my radar. This is not a book with a cover that I would normally have looked twice at. It looks like historical fiction to me. It also looks like it might have some like mob ties, some sort of like 1920s glitz and glamour tropes, and none of those things are things that I want to read about. However, this book is written very, very uniquely, and it was in fact my very good pal and also patron Sarah who gave me the extra push, because this is also not her kind of thing and she absolutely devoured it. So essentially, from what I understand, this book follows the prospects of one family, which is something that I do kind of like in literary fiction in a very slice of life sort of way. At its basis, it is about a Wall Street tycoon who gets married, and pretty much they end up turning into like the couple of the time, like the two people to watch as they rise through fame and, you know, money. But as with all rises to fame, not everybody tells the same story about it, and there is now a novelist who is threatening to expose everything that they have ever done to get where they are. Again, this premise maybe wouldn't get me over the line, but apparently this book is told in 4 separate parts from 4 different perspectives, and every time you get a new part, you unlearn some of the lies that have already been told, and they are rewritten for you in somebody else's voice with somebody else's perspective until you get to the very last section and kind of have to decide for yourself what is true. Thoroughly appeals to me in so many different ways, but I know myself, and I know that if I don't read this one now when I have the urge to read it, it's going to end up sitting on my shelf and becoming a rainy day book, so I am going to pick it up for this prompt. Once again, the Bookopoly board not doing too badly for me. Okay, next row. Even with dots, I have to double check that I'm counting right. That is 5, 6, 7, 8. I have no idea where 8 is taking us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, science fiction. Science fiction. Double feature. Well, it can't be a double feature because I can't roll a 1, but the song had to be sung, okay? Ah, science fiction. The one. What just happened? Okie dokie. Science fiction. The one genre in my entire library that has more unread books in it than it has read books in it. And that is because when I culled my library, I really viciously culled my science fiction collection. However, that meant that the books that were left in that section afterwards that were unread are books that I'm really, really excited for. And this is a perfect opportunity to pick up one of those. So, this one is The Blood Trials by N.E. Davenport. It is part of a duology which kind of defies the genre as well as kind of defies traditional age ranges, because this one starts out as being like quite a traditional YA and then ends up very definitely in the adult category. We are following a girl called Ikenna. She is from a world that was taken over years and years earlier when she was just a baby. Her people were almost completely wiped out, but she and a few others were saved, and she is brought up by the man who did that, who she calls her grandfather. He trained her in martial arts and subterfuge and a few other things in the hopes that they could keep the dream of getting her people back into power alive. But at the beginning of this book, her grandfather is assassinated and she is left with a choice to make. And I'm guessing that the choice is death, destruction and fire. Otherwise, why would we be here? We are rolling for book 4. And it is a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh no. This is a scroll through Goodreads. I didn't even see this on the board. Well, that's what you get for chancing the Bookopoly gods. Oh guys, I'm not gonna lie. I am absolutely terrified for this one. I have done a challenge entirely based on Goodreads and Instagram scrolls before and it really did me dirty. So this one is gonna be tough. So the way that I'm gonna do this is I am simply going to scroll through Goodreads until I hit a book that I either own and that I know that I haven't read, or until I see a book that I'm very, very excited about but don't own yet. Oh, okay, so the first one that I've got here is from my lovely friend Stef at Novelty Corner. Stef is an absolute gem, and that's so weird because A, I have seen the Spell Shop book around about and you know, it's marketed as cozy fantasy but it is witchy and the cover is absolutely beautiful, so I have spied it a few times. But I'm just realising that Sarah Beth Durst wrote it, who is also the person who wrote The Lake House, right? So that's a bit creepy. But I'm not going to pick this one up because I know for absolute pure truth that I am not going to love anything that is being marketed as cozy. So let's keep scrolling. Yep, we're not doing romance or thriller. It doesn't have a cover. Romance. Ooh, We Used to Live Here. I think that this is the one that is being made into a Netflix movie with Blake. Yes, it is. Okay, this one was on my books that I'm looking forward to for the second half of this year list. Let me go and investigate whether it's actually out or not. Alright, it is out. It came out at the end of June and I have discovered that it is actually on Everand, so I am going to be listening to that one on audiobook. It does help my bingo board. I have not even been looking at what hits my bingo board here and I'm not going to. I will just deal with all of that when I do my wrap up. So yes, thank you very much to Asia who added that to their Goodreads at the right time apparently. Okay, rolling for our 5th book. We have another double. This is a double 3, so that is 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes! I am delighted about this one. This is the other space, so I can definitely find some horror or something from my downstairs bookshelves for that one. Ooh, creepy books. As I said earlier on in this video, my horror shelves do live in my living room, and so I kind of just don't see them. When I'm in my living room, I'm not facing that bookcase. When I'm up here making TBRs, I just don't particularly think of those books. This might mean that a change of the guard needs to happen. I might need to move like my literary fiction and middle grade books and stuff like that downstairs because I reach for them less anyway, and bring my horror upstairs. But as we've just rearranged this library, that ain't going to be happening anytime soon. So I just need to get into the habit of taking a picture before I come up here. But the 3 books that come to mind for me that are on my horror shelves that kind of fit into the creepy category that I haven't read and are kind of annoying me are Pine, Lonely Castle in the Mirror, and The Shadow Glass. All of these books have made it onto a TBR and have fallen off that TBR at some point or another. And now I'm trying to think about it in a practical way for Battleathon. I'm trying to be like, which one of these am I most likely to rate highly? And I don't honestly know because they're all so different. Pine, I think, is like survival, thrillery, people in the woods, their lodge burns down, that kind of thing. Lonely Castle in the Mirror is translated fiction. It is about a group of kids who wake up to their mirrors in their bedrooms glowing one day, and they step through it and they are into a castle. There's kind of a competition, and if you don't win it then you die. And then The Shadow Glass is kind of a take on that 80s genre of serious films that included puppets, but the puppets come to life. Do you know what? As I said it, I got really excited for that book again, so let's do it. We are going to read The Shadow Glass. From what I remember about this one, it is about a guy who goes back to clean out his dad's house after he has died. His dad was a movie director, but he only had one hit cult film, and it included an entirely created universe of these puppets who went into battle. It's very niche, it's very underground, but when he goes to his dad's house he discovers that the entire attic is just filled with these puppets and all of this movie memorabilia, and as he's trying to work out what to do with it, one of the puppets comes alive and tells him that actually this whole thing was real the whole time and that he needs to help. Kind of surreal, kind of weird, kind of really want to read it. However, we did roll another double, so instead of picking 5 books, we're now picking 6. So we're rolling for our 6th book now. Okay, we got another 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ooh! Okay, so this one is manga. Now, I don't actually own any manga, but I do own graphic novels. So I'm going to go with graphic novel for this space just instead, and we'll see what we have left unread on our shelves. Okay, this one turns out to actually be very, very easy, and I was a little bit worried that it wouldn't, because as soon as I committed to the idea of doing comics, I was like, crap, the only comics that are on my shelf right now are big long series that I want to reread to determine whether I want to keep them. And so I had a bit of a panic, but then I remembered that I have the most recent edition of Lore Olympus, and that is definitely a graphic novel, a comic, so I will be reading this one. I don't think anybody really needs me to tell you what Lore Olympus is about at this point, but I'll just quickly run over it. This one is a Hades and Persephone retelling, but it brings Olympus into the modern age. It kind of goes with the premise that as the world has aged, the gods have evolved, and so technology is now like part of the underworld. Olympus now has universities, women can go to university, and that is exactly what Persephone is trying to do. She wants to get away from her mother for a little while in the countryside. She wants to come to the city and she wants to go to university and get an education, but pretty much her first night there, she goes to a club with a friend and accidentally gets bundled, as part of a prank that she is not involved in, into the back of Hades' car. Hades then drives to the underworld and then discovers that she is there, and from then on in, the two of them have a very cinnamon roll will they won't they relationship, and it's great. Again, I've said it before, it's one of the only romance anythings that makes me kick my little feet. Okay, so all things being equal, Bookopoly gods, this should be my last roll. We got an 8. It was kind to us. Well, I say it was kind to us. Was it kind to us? Let's find out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes! It was kind to us. You guys know that you bitch is trying to clear a shelf, so that is perfect. I'm kind of kicking myself a little bit, because what you don't know is that by the point that I filmed this TBR roll, I had already filmed several videos in Becca's library, which you will see very soon, but one of those videos was to try a chapter tag on her fantasy shelves, and there were a couple of books on there that I was like very squealy about, that I could realistically have allowed myself to pick for this, but I didn't. I committed to the idea of trying to clear the shelf that I said I was going to clear. It's now a square on my bingo board. Here's a picture of the shelf that I am trying to clear in case you don't remember it. There are several books on that shelf that I have not read yet, but the next book along that has caught my interest is The Pomegranate Gate by Ariel Kaplan, which is actually a very fitting book, shall we say, because it was a recommendation that I got from Becca in the first place. So the Pomegranate Gate is a historical fantasy. Think like Temrare by Naomi Novik, which is the Napoleonic Wars but add dragons. This one is a take on Jewish history but adds some fantasy elements in. I really love the blurb for this one, so I'm going to read you a tiny bit of it. It says, Toba Perez can speak but she can't shout. She can walk but she can't run, and she can write in 5 languages with both hands at the same time. Naphtali dreams every night of an orange-eyed stranger. When awake, he sees things that aren't real, and he carries a book he can never lose and never read. So these two people are travelling in a Jewish convoy of people who have been told that they can either convert to the religion that is now dominant or they can leave. During this perilous trek through the woods, Toba follows someone into the darkness and disappears through a gate, a doorway that goes somewhere else, leaving Naphtali on the other side. And what Toba discovers as she walks through that gate is that the world on the other side mirrors her own, but with some really horrific consequences. I did not realise that this is actually book 1 in a series. I thought that this was a standalone, but according to Goodreads it is going to get a sequel. I think it's a good time to read this as well, because I do have this in a beautiful hardback edition, and I would like to discover whether I love it enough to get the sequel in hardback or not. So those are all of the books that I'm going to be reading for my Bookopoly rolls. Thank you so much to Becca for allowing me to abuse the privileges of your library and your Bookopoly boards. Believe me when I say that there are several more videos abusing abusing that privilege coming soon. But I do have other books that I am going to be reading this month. For the Fits Along, which is a complete read along of the Realm of the Elderlings books by Robin Hobb, which I am hosting, me, myself and I, we are now on to the second trilogy, Ship of Magic. So again, if you've read the first trilogy and you would like to jump in, now is the time to do it, because August is the second of the 2 months that we have to read the first book in that trilogy. Ship of Magic is not my favourite book in the Realm of the Elderlings. In fact, I think it is safe to say that it is my least favourite book in the series, but it does get better from here. I absolutely adore Mad Ship, so I just need to get through this one. I did in fact pack it and take it with me to Becca's, but I never picked it up. And talking about read-alongs, we are now nearing the end of a read-along. It is nearly the end of Around the Disc in 800 Days, which is myself and my lovely friend Kirsty's complete read-through of all of the Discworld books by Terry Pratchett. We are now down to so few books that we are reading 1 book a month instead of 2. So I have Unseen Academicals to read next, which unfortunately is again also not one of my favourite books in the Discworld. And I forgot to tell you last month around about my Patreon book clubs that are running right now. Officially, the Seance Society are reading the Veronica Speedwell series, so I will be chugging on to the next book in this one. But we couldn't decide between the Veronica Speedwell and the other one that won the tops in the polls, and that was the Thursday Murder Club series by Richard Osman. Now, I have varied feelings about the first book in this series, which I know is not going to please a lot of people because this is quite a beloved series and it is actually one of Lovely Spouse Harry's favourite series in the world. But I am going to give these ones a good go because I do actually really like some of the characters in these books, and I do happen to accidentally own the whole series. So yes, I will also be reading those. If you have got this far through the video, then please leave me a star emoji of your choice down below to represent my Battleathon house. Come join us. And as always, if you have read any of the books here today and you would like to tell me about them, good or bad, down in the comments below, then please do that. And if you would like to recommend me any of the books based on the books that I am very excited about here today, then don't hesitate to do that too, because your girl apparently just cannot stop purchasing things. If you are new here and you want to see how I get on for Battleathon and whether my team wins or not, then please hit that subscribe button down below. And if you are a returning viewer who of course is already on my team, right, then please hit that like button on the way out because it really does help my channel, and I will speak to you guys really soon. Bye!